Bonjour tout le monde. J'ai choisi pour vous aujourd'hui un livre qui décrit la vie de Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. La semaine passée, quelques-uns de vous ont eu la chance de regarder une version pour enfants de son opéra La Flûte magique et c'est une œuvre par Mozart. Alors j'ai pensé, bien, peut-être que vous aimeriez savoir un petit peu plus à propos de lui, comme quand il était un petit garçon. Sur le titre Famous Children, Mozart. Nannerl was having a music lesson. Her father, Leopold, was teaching her. Little Wolfgang Mozart was watching and listening to every note she played. When her lesson was over, he asked, "Please, may I have a lesson, Papa?" "You are too little, Wolfie," said Father Mozart. When Father Mozart and Nannerl left the room, little Wolfgang went up to the clavier and pressed the keys. He smiled. The music sounded beautiful. Father Mozart heard him and came to see. Wolfgang was playing correctly without anyone helping him. Father Mozart decided to give his little boy music lessons. Soon Wolfgang was playing as well as his big sister Nannerl. He learned so quickly his father was very pleased. But when Wolfgang started to write his own music, to compose, Father Mozart was delighted. No one could believe that a little boy of 5 could write such beautiful music. And there he is, using a quill pen. This is in the 1700s. Now, Father Mozart decided to take his 2 bright children on a concert tour to Munich, Germany. It was a long trip. Inside the coach, it was very bumpy. But still they had to work. Father Mozart made them practice on make-believe keyboards, probably made from cloth. As soon as they arrived in Munich, people began to talk about the talented little Mozart children. Dressed in their best clothes, they played for Prince Joseph. The concert was a huge success. Everyone clapped and gave them presents of jewels and lace. Father Mozart was very proud of them. And here they are, probably at the end of a concert. One large lady was so excited that she ran over to the little boy, picked him up in her arms, and gave him a loud, sloppy kiss. "Yuck," said Wolfgang as he wriggled away and wiped his face. Ooh. And there she is. Back home in Salzburg, Austria, Wolfgang was so pleased to see his mother and his funny little dog, Bimperl. He had missed them very much. Wolfgang hugged Bimperl and then wrote a little minuet to celebrate his return. It was January 1762, just days before his 6th birthday. A few days later, Father Mozart gave Wolfgang a present. It was a little violin. That night, when Papa's friends arrived carrying their instruments, Wolfgang ran to get his own little fiddle. But Papa shook his head. "No, Wolfgang, you cannot possibly play with us until you've had some lessons and lots of practice." Wolfgang burst into tears. So there he is hugging his little dog when he comes back from his trip. And this is Papa Mozart with his friends, lots of musicians, and Mozart wants to play with them. One of Mr. Mozart's friends, Mr. Schachtner, felt very sorry for Wolfgang. "Come on, Leopold," he said. "Let the child stand near me. I don't mind." "Oh, very well," said Father Mozart. "But remember to play softly, Wolfgang, so no one will hear you." So there's Mr. Schachtner, who's agreeing to let Wolfgang stand beside him, and there's Papa agreeing to let him do so. Wolfgang smiled through his tears, and standing next to Mr. Schackner, he began to follow the music. Gradually, Mr. Schackner played softly, still more softly, and then he stopped playing altogether. Little Wolfgang continued playing. Father Mozart could not believe his eyes or ears. How could his little boy play such difficult music without any lessons? Oh boy, he was a special little boy, wasn't he? Their next trip was to Vienna, Austria, and this time Mother came too. One day an important invitation arrived. It had a royal crest. Wolfgang and Nannerl were to play at the royal palace for the Emperor and Empress. There was such excitement. Clothes were washed and ironed, shoes were polished till they shone like mirrors. Then they all climbed into the coach and started off for the palace. The Emperor, the Empress, and the royal children were waiting in the throne room. Wolfgang looked longingly at the children. Will we be able to play some games with them? He wondered. First, Wolfgang performed, then Nannerl. Then they played duets together. The royal family sat motionless. They couldn't believe that all that wonderful music was being played by such a little boy and his sister, because they were used to hearing professional musicians, and they would have orchestras playing for them, and yet these two children entertained them just as much as those professionals. While Mr. and Mrs. Mozart talked with the Emperor and Empress, Wolfgang and Nannerl played with the royal children. Whoops! Cried Wolfgang as he slipped and fell over on the polished floor. The little Archduchess Marie Antoinette helped him to his feet. Ah, you are very kind, said the little boy. When I grow up, I will marry you. After the children had gone home, their hands filled with gifts from the Empress, the Emperor stroked his chin. What a smart little boy. We must invite them again. I will test him a little. I would like to find out if he is as good as he seems. So, the Emperor and the Empress are discussing inviting Wolfgang and his sister. Two days later, the most wonderful clothes were delivered to the Mozart children. They were a present from the Empress. Wolfgang gasped. His suit was fit for a prince. There were white silk stockings, velvet trousers, and a lilac jacket with a beautiful vest. Nannerl's dress was pink with white embroidery. They wore these beautiful clothes when they went back to the palace the next week. And they are so happy with their brand new clothing. Mr. and Mrs. Mozart, Master Wolfgang and Miss Nannerl, announced the footman. As soon as Wolfgang saw the Empress, he ran across the floor, climbed on her lap, flung his arms around her neck, and gave her a big kiss. Well, I guess he really appreciated those clothes. What are you going to play, little one? Asked the Emperor, smiling. I shall play my Allegro in B-flat major, Wolfgang replied. He slid off the Empress's knee and ran over to the clavier. Very good, said the Emperor, but first of all, I wish to place this over the keys. He held up a large black cloth. So there he is, showing the cloth to Mozart. Mozart sighed. It made no difference to him. He could play the clavier without looking at the keys. The Emperor put the black cloth over the keyboard. Wolfgang placed his hands on the cloth and played his Allegro perfectly. Well done, cried the Emperor and the Empress. And there they are. And Wolfgang looks pretty proud of himself. Father Leopold took Nannerl and Wolfgang to many different countries. One trip lasted 3 years and 5 months. Can you believe being away from home for 3 years and 5 months? Ooh, that would be hard. Wherever they went, they gave concerts. Everyone admired them and gave them presents. They called Wolfgang Mozart, the Wonder Boy. Well, Wolfgang grew up to become one of the greatest composers of all time. Even today, people all over the world love to perform and to listen to his wonderful music. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart wrote over 700 works in his very short life, including symphonies, concertos, sonatas, and masses. He wrote 23 operas. The most famous of these are The Marriage of Figaro, Così fan tutte, Don Giovanni, and the one some of you got a chance to watch last week in music class, The Magic Flute. The end.